Welcome back to Rob Sandstrom's YouTube channel. If you've ever tried to figure out how to bring an odd object in, like a cookie in this case, into your design software vCarve Pro and then set that up for carving, this video should help you with that process. In this video, I'm going to take a cookie and I'm going to import a picture of that cookie into the vCarve Pro software and then set up a design so that I can ultimately carve a multicolor epoxy sign onto that cookie. In the video, you will see the following elements. The first thing you'll see is me importing the actual cookie picture. The next thing you'll see is setting up the XY coordinates and the project so that when I put the design on the cookie, it will carve in the right location. And the third thing you will see is me taking the design that I was given by the client, importing it into the software, and manipulating that design in a way that will allow me to eventually carve and pour multiple colors of epoxy. If you're wondering how to do any of those things, this video should be helpful to you. Now, I will point out that I'm not actually going to show you how to make the step-by-step manipulations of the design, because that would simply just take too long. What I will show you, though, is how I took the 4-inch ornament design that I was given and then the ultimate result of setting up multiple tool paths that would allow me to pour the multiple colors of epoxy that will be required for this project. When importing the picture in this video, I am not going to cover how I actually remove the background, because I'll bring it in without the background. If for some reason you would like to see that, there's lots of other information out there on how you can remove backgrounds from pictures. But if you want to see how I did it with this cookie, put a comment down below and I'll put a video together on that. Let's move forward and go ahead and start on bringing the picture into the software, setting up the XY coordinates, and then starting into the design.
In this video, I want to focus on how we're going to actually design the cookies. To set up the project, I'm going to go ahead and make this single-sided. The width of the cookie is no more than 24 inches. That's the width of my bed on my CNC, and the height will keep it 30 inches for right now. If I need to change it later, I will. I do want to go out the material surface with everything I'm doing, and I'm going to start this whole process with my XY in the center of the material. I need to measure this, find the center of this cookie, because it's the only reliable or semi-reliable place I can use to do my design off of, since it doesn't have right angles. So I won't be able to start in the lower left corner or any of the other places. So everything will be designed off the center point here. Once I have all that information, I hit OK. And you can see I've got my center. First thing I want to do is import a picture of the cookie. You will notice that prior to starting this video, I've actually taken the background, made it transparent from the cookie, and you can do that a number of different ways. I'm not going to go through that in this video. If you need information on that, just Google it and you'll find 100 different ways to take the background out of a photo. So that's what I'm going to be importing. First thing I do is I go up here to import bitmap. I pick the cookie. See, I see blank cookie with transparent background. Hit open. Now that cookie is not going to be the actual right size. The next step in being able to make our design is to resize this cookie to the actual size of the cookie as I measured it. So the easiest way to do that is to make a rectangle box of the size we need and then fit the cookie within it. The size of the rectangle we're going to need to make is going to be 23 inches in the X direction and 25 in the Y. It's just slightly less than that, but this will get us close enough to make the design. So that is the size of the actual cookie, and we want to make sure, and I'm going to hit close, and we want to make sure that this is also centered. We want to keep everything centered, so I'm going to select this, and I can hit the F9 key So I hit the F9 key and you can see that it actually centered that box. So now we have it centered. So the next step is to make this cookie fit within this box. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and click twice on this cookie, and then we can start to increase the size. There we go. And we'll pull this handle up and this handle down, and we'll pull these handles out. Pull this handle out. And it's just an iteration process. Pull that handle up. We'll pull this handle down until you see that we have the cookie in the right rectangle, or as close as possible. And now we've got that cookie right where we want it. And that's going to be plenty close enough for the design that we're doing. It's not going to have that much of a tolerance. And we'll just have to play a little bit with it when we do the alignment, and you'll see that when we do the alignment video. So now we have the cookie. The next step is to actually take that cookie and to create an outline so that we can bring in the design that we need to put on it. So that will be the next step. Now that we have the cookie here, let me get rid of this box. We no longer need that. That's just extra. So we'll delete that. And again, you're seeing the delete key because I'm using a Mac and my delete key is not working in this program. You could just normally hit delete. And the next step then is to start using the Bitmap Trace Tool to get to the point where we have the outline of this cookie for our future design. So now we're going to trace this bitmap, and it takes some playing with sometimes to actually get it right. I'm not real good at it, but if we play around with it, we can get it. All we're interested in is to get this circle here and this circle here. Mostly this circle is the one we care about because this is where our design is going to be. So let's take a look right here and go to the Trace Bitmap tool, and we'll use the color selection. And we got to select the bitmap. Now that we've selected the bitmap, the first thing I'll do is try to go right here on this line, and we'll see how that circle looks. See what that looks like. We're going to do a preview, and it looks like it might be going all the way around. I want to make sure I don't have the group vectors on. And let's see how that looks. Okay, we're going to hit apply, close. And that gives us this line. And I want to see if this goes all the way around. I selected it, and you can see how it's got a full circle. So I'm going to move this to a new layer. I'm going to call that inner cookie. So now I have that layer in there. And now I can hide that layer, and I can go in there and delete all the rest of the noise. Next thing I want to do is get the outside of that cookie. Okay, it looks to me like that might have got our circles. Let's we previewed it. Let's apply it, hit close, and we're going to come in here, and we want to ungroup everything. Should have selected ungroup to begin with. And I'm going to take this outer layer, this outer circle we have here, and I'm going to move this to a new layer, outer cookie. I may rename these later, but I just want to have them for now. Blue. Hit OK. And so now we have, if we look at both our layers, we have the outer cookie and the inner cookie. It took me a while, but I got it done. And we're going to go in here, and I'm going to take away the outer cookie. I'm going to take away the inner cookie's not there. And now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just go ahead and delete all this noise. And now we will have our outer circle and our inner circle. And I'll clean this up a little bit off screen. You don't need to see me going through and doing all of this cleanup. So let's take a look at where we're at right now. I cleaned this up. I called this the outer circle profile and I called this the inner circle profile. We've got these vectors lined and now it was time to bring in the design. I'm not going to go through all of the changes in the design. Let me bring in and show you what I started with. And let's try to, let's see here, take the bitmap itself. I'm going to turn that off so it's not so bright. And now you see the design that came in. This was the SVG. It had all of this information, all of this text, and it came in as a 4-inch ornament because that's what the design had come from. So my next steps was to go through and clean this ornament up. So I started deleting items. And got this part clean. And the next step was to go ahead and resize and rearrange all of this text. And that can take a long time. It probably took me a couple hours to do. So I'm not going to go through all of that process. I'm going to go ahead and delete this part right now. And I'm going to fast forward you to how I ended up designing this to fit inside of this cookie. So let me delete this part. We don't need all that extra distraction. That's not important for doing the epoxy pour. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And let me open up the layers that I actually ended up developing. So here's the bitmap. I'm going to leave it off. You don't need that. That just creates noise behind you, but you can see how it represents the cookie. And then the next thing that I did was to bring in text. So for the epoxy pour, this text was going to all be the same color. So the first thing I needed to do was clean up the vectors. We're not going to go through all that, but decide on what size it needed to be and how everything was going to be centered. So if you look at this, you see me centering it off of this central line. And then when I was adjusting the cookie, I did find that this was over a little, and so therefore I had to twist the cookie a little bit more. You'll find that when you see me doing the alignment on the cookie. If you look at the bitmap, you can see it was just barely over here, and I ended up having to adjust it over just a little bit. The next thing was, now that I've got the actual black text, one of the things that I do before I actually pour the color is to pour a clear pocket. So the next thing I had to do was to set up a clear pocket. So I had to go ahead and take and make an offset for all of these. And so in the vectors, you will see this offset. See offset excellence here, offset text. So that's what we did, was we offset the vectors so that I could pour the clear. So let me take off the original text, not the offset. So that's the clear. I take off the clear, and then I pour the black. And that's the black that you'll see later in the pour. Then the next thing I did was to set up the blade. And there are a couple different sets of the blade. First I have the clear pour. So let me show you that. You can see the clear pour of the blade is right here. And then once I pour the clear, I have the black pour of the blade. And you can see the black is just slightly offset from the clear. And the clear, remember, is to stop it from bleeding out into the cookie. And the black is the main body of the color. And then the blade we wanted to be silver. So then here is the blade vector. So this is silver here, and this is black. So I will pour my black first, and then I'll pour my silver. So you can see how I've got this set up. I've got this set up in various layers. The first layer I will pour is the color. And so if I go in here and I take off all of the text, I don't need the outside circle and inside circle, but I'll leave that there. Take off the silver blade, take off the black blade, take off the new text. I put on the offset text and the offset excellent text. That's going to be my clear colors that I'm going to pour. And then I will start to pour black next. And so I would come through here and I'm going to pour black next. So I'm going to do the black blade. I'm going to do the text here and the text here, and that will all be a black color pour after the clear has hardened. And then the last pour that I will do is the silver part of the blade, which is that part right there. That's the sequence I'm going to go in when I do this project. If you look at the toolpath, you will see that that's exactly how I have each one of those set up. So let's take a look at this one. Normally my first clear path is going to be 0.15 inches deep, and that's what you see here. In this path, I've got a couple clearance tools, an 1/8 inch clearance tool, a 1/4 inch clearance tool, and then I've got my V-bit, which is a 15-degree V-bit. If you go to my silver, that was actually my third color, but it's my second in here. But if you go to my silver, you'll see I have only going down to 0.125 inches with the 15-degree V-bit and a 3/16 inch end mill. Based on the size of this cookie, it's pretty big. And then if you go to black, you'll see I used several bits for black based on the size. I went 0.125 deep. I used a 3/16 inch end mill, a 1/8 inch end mill, and a 1/16 inch end mill, all to carve out the black. So that's what I did for each of these. So let's take a quick look at how it looks if I just play with the colors a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and go 0.05. I don't need to do anything with the clear because I don't really care about the clear. Let me close that out. So with the black, I'm going to go 0.05, and I'm going to hit calculate. Oh, I've got to select the vectors. So I got to go back up here and turn those vectors on. So I've got excellence text, and then I've got the new text, and then I've got the black blade, not the silver blade. So I'm going to hit the selector here, black blade, new text, excellent text, and we've got them all. We're going to associate it with the toolpath, hit close, hit calculate. Let me change the material. And I had the cookie on my other one. I used it as a background here. So we'll see how that's going to carve. Let's preview that. All right, so that's the black. And then the next part is the silver. So we'll come into the silver. And I got to make sure I have that on up here, the silver blade, because that's all that's silver. And I'm going to select in here, associate with toolpath, silver, close, hit calculate, and then we're going to preview that, preview visible, and you can see how the blade turned out. So this is the design of the cookie. Now one other thing I did was I brought in the cookie as a background so I could preview this to the customer. Although I did this in the original file that I sent the customer, you can see that the colors were brown, and after we discussed it, we decided to make the color of the text black. I'm not showing how I did that in this video for sakes of how long it is already, But if you'd like to see how I do that, go ahead and comment down below, and I'll put a video together on how I actually imported the cookie in a way that allowed me to put the design on it so that I could preview it to the customer.
Well, that's a wrap. I hope you picked up one or two items that you might be able to use. Remember, I did not show how I took the background off the picture that I brought into the software, nor did I show how I was able to take the carving that I set up and put it on a representation of the cookie. If you're interested in those videos, please make sure you put a comment down below and I'll produce them in the future. So far in this video series, I have one other video, and that's finding the center of the cookie and the unique way I did that. If you haven't seen that, then go watch that video right after this one. I'll put a link down in the description. If you like what you've seen so far, give me a thumbs up, comment, or share. If you made it this far in the video, put a little start your comment with "Epoxy is fun," and that way I'll know you made it all the way through. If you have any additional insights or things you would like to see, let me know that also. Now, I will be producing a couple other videos in this series because my plan is to show you A to Z how I actually started with the blank cookie and got it to the point that I made this sign right here. The other videos I'll be making will demonstrate how I took the cookie, attached it to my sled, put it on the CNC, and then aligned it in a way that I could get successful carvings over and over again as I poured the multiple different colors. Once I demonstrate how I get it all aligned so that I can have multiple carvings, I'll then demonstrate how I surfaced the cookie to make sure I could accept those carvings, because it has to be perfectly flat. And the other thing I'll demonstrate is the actual carvings of the various colors. First the clear coat, then the black coat, then the silver coat, and finally, but not least, I'll show you how I surface that epoxy off and sand and finish the cookie. If you want to be aware of when those videos come out, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe now. Hit that little subscribe button and click on the bell so you will be informed when those videos come out. I appreciate your patronage. I hope you picked up a thing or two, and until we meet again in this medium, I hope all is well.